Good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining this session today and for joining Postman to allow me to speak to you about the Moneris API transformation journey, or rather than, let's say in general, the journey or the I would say never-ending story of, transforming legacy APIs into, modern reusable solutions, right? That's what we all ever want in our organizations. So, as you may all know, as far as technology kept evolving, one thing kept to be the same, which is organizations have always been dealing with outdated APIs built for specific needs and tightly coupled to particular systems, making them difficult to maintain and reuse, right? And these APIs tend to become that vexing technical debt that just drags down innovation and, of course, hinders your agility, right? We all been there. We've been in meetings like, we are looking to shoot to the moon, but of course, all we think about, oh, there is that legacy API, please, not that API that we built, 10 or 20 years ago. And of course, we don't want to touch. Correct? We all done that, had nightmares of those APIs. So in this session today, we'll be exploring, of course, some of the common challenges with legacy API architectures, some of the best practices for API modernization, as well as how we can design APIs for reusability. And all the while, we'll be exploring Moneris' own API transformation journey, the good and the bad. Look, it's like we've been mentioning, since yesterday in the keynote, is that no experience is perfect. It's just, it's that agile, we keep to be agile, build it one step at a time. And I'm hoping by end of the session, you will have some practical strategies to turn any brittle, outdated legacy API that you encounter into a modern reusable asset that drives business value. Okay, it's a dream, we always keep dreaming, but hey, we'll try to make these dreams come true. So, before we start our journey together, let me first introduce myself very quickly. So my name is Houssem. I'm API architect at Moneris and the Postman community leader. So I've been around APIs for quite some time now. My first API was an XML API built on an ASP page, not even ASP.NET, okay? It's ASP, so that's how legacy my first API was. What can I say? SOAP was still becoming a standard back then. We all know how it was, back in those years. So I pop up between now and then on the Postman community website, either through an article one day, the other day I pop up on webinars, and sometimes just trying to converse with fellow developers, product owners, such as yourselves, debug APIs, and help build better APIs on Postman. So, now that you know who I am, let me introduce you Moneris, one of Canada's largest financial technology companies. So, for over 25 years, Moneris has been the driving force behind commerce across the great nation of Canada, empowering businesses with innovative payment solutions and transforming how Canadians shop, pay, and do business. In fact, Moneris serves as the backbone of payment processing for every vertical of the Canadian economy. Restaurants, we're there. Trades, we're there. Not-for-profit organizations, we're there. Professional services, we're there. The public sector, we're there. So you come to Canada, you're processing in Canada, most likely you're gonna be transacting with Moneris at some point. Founded in 2000, Moneris actually represents a joint venture between two of Canada's largest banking giants, the Royal Bank of Canada, known as RBC, and the Bank of Montreal, known as BMO, combining their expertise in financial services and technology. Strength in union, right? It always has been that way. And as Canada's #1 acquirer by domestic transaction volume, Moneris supports over 325,000 point-of-sale terminals as of 2018, processing over 5 billion transactions a year. These numbers demonstrate the critical role that Moneris plays in the Canadian payment infrastructure. So let's start our journey by looking at the statement by James Gosling. James Gosling says, an API that is incomprehensible isn't usable. And this statement captures a fundamental principle of API design. Why API comprehensibility matters in APIs, actually? It's actually, it makes sense. First of all, it's the learning curve. When your API is difficult to understand, developers will be spending more time trying to learn with it rather than building with it. And this, of course, increases the time to first call metric, which is a critical adoption factor in the world of APIs. Second, it's implementation quality. When developers find your API difficult to understand, they are more likely to implement it incorrectly, leading to bugs, security issues, and of course, more support tickets. And we don't want those now, do we? Third, the developer experience. I mean, look, a comprehensible API definitely creates a positive developer experience, therefore enhancing customer satisfaction and adoption, therefore bringing us new customers as well as repeat ones. And last but not least, it's maintainability. So even for the API's own developers, when an API is confusing, it is definitely, hard to debug, maintain, and evolve. Look, we all been there, as I was mentioning, where we had that one big API, legacy big API, that nobody wants to touch in our organizations. And they are there, right? And we just don't want to touch. And that's what we want to pretty much get rid of eventually. So, in that context, Moneris has embarked on a comprehensive API transformation journey to create a robust, comprehensive, and developer-friendly API ecosystem across our platform. And not only this modernizes our technology infrastructure, yeah, that's guaranteed, but also it aligns with our organizational goals of course, enhancing customer satisfaction, accelerating partner adoption, and of course, and therefore enabling innovation in the payment industry. See, it all maps out together, business, technology. So, before our journey started, let me paint you a picture of actually where we started. So, our API development approach was code first. Hey, it was the 2000s. That's how most of us we were developing. So, APIs were built as integration points, not as products. API documentation was kind of an afterthought. Yeah, we develop, we deploy to production, then we'll start putting something in the developer portal, right? And therefore, the entire developer experience concept was not a primary focus. And over 20 years of doing business and success came with challenges. So, 20 years of doing business created an entire API sprawl across our API landscape. And we accumulated a legacy of inconsistent styles, data formats, protocols, and authentication schemes. And our documentation lived on various platforms and was delivered in multiple formats, therefore creating a fragmented developer experience. We all dealt with these issues, right? So now that's a reflection of our growth, where we started, and of course, our opportunity for transformation. So we envisioned a unified API ecosystem where all our APIs would look like they were built by the same author, and our APIs would be developer-friendly, consistent, and following industry's best practices. And therefore, a developer would build one integration and then use it across all our APIs. See? So now we have ourselves a vision. Let me walk you through why we chose Postman as our API development platform for such big vision. To start with, Postman, as we saw in the earlier keynote, offers a wide range of tools covering the entire API development lifecycle. Design, Postman has it. Testing, Postman has it. Documentation, Postman has it. Monitoring, Postman has it. And as we saw also, now AI, Postman also has it. Also, as far as Moneris is concerned, so the Postman free app has been widely adopted among the development teams at Moneris, therefore making the transition to the enterprise offering easier and smoother. Moreover, Postman boasts a vibrant community offering solutions and driving innovation across the community. And one key differentiator for Postman is the workspace design concept that enables efficient collaboration across our development teams by breaking down communication silos between the different API consumers and producers across Moneris. So now that we have picked our development platform, let's start now diving into the core subject of our discussion and how we have transformed our legacy APIs into modern solutions. And at the core of our API strategy, we followed a structured approach. Step one, audit and discover. And this foundational phase involves mapping our API landscape to identify candidates for transformation. Any API architectural exercise, of course, starts with current state, target state, going through a transitional state. And therefore, the expected output of this phase is an API inventory, a gap analysis report. So these two, current state, target state, and an initial API transformation scope document that outlines your potential transitional state. Then comes step two, prioritization. And this is where we prioritize high-value, high-impact APIs first. Naturally, the expected output of this step is a prioritization matrix that weighs business value against implementation complexity to identify quick wins and strategical investments. Now, once we have prioritized which APIs we want to transform, now we can start by designing them, or in this case, redesigning them, right? Because we already have these APIs in production, so we are redesigning. But what's the difference? Now we are using modern API design best practices, from design styles to standardized taxonomy, as well as standardized security practices. Now, once we have designed our APIs, now we can start implementing them. And in this phase, we implemented quality gates, focusing on code reviews, security scanning, performance testing, and documentation completeness. This is how we fix that documentation gap. And throughout these phases, we have established an ongoing API governance process to ensure quality and consistency across our API portfolio. And to that purpose, we have actually created an API governance committee, or what's known as an API guild, with representatives from both technical teams and business teams to oversee standards and address any cross-cutting concerns that have emerged throughout this transitional phase. Because yes, it's going to happen. You will have multiple teams, multiple projects, and there are issues you need to resolve. Also, maybe standards needs to be addressed, etc. So now, speaking of governance, let me walk you through how we have implemented API governance at an enterprise scale at Moneris. So, beginning with our API governance framework, we have followed a hybrid approach that balances centralized governance with federated API design capabilities. And this approach allows us to maintain consistent standards while empowering technical teams. And as such, the foundation pillars of our governance framework are robust standards. You don't have governance if you don't have the standard API design style guide. That's given. 2, skilled people. You need skilled people to implement these governance rules. And it's very important. The people is pretty much the most important part because you need that, understanding across your organization. 3, well-designed API lifecycle stages. You need to define what's onboarding, what's deprecation, and how that works. And last but not least, efficient processes. Enter Postman, the backbone of API development at Moneris. So, as you can see, we have leveraged the Postman API Builder and now Spec Hub to create and maintain API specifications as well as API collections to ensure consistency between design all the way to implementation. We have also leveraged the Postman workspace collections to create comprehensive examples as well as API test collections to validate our API designs and implementation. And through it all, we have also relied on the Postman governance tools and linting capabilities to ensure quality and consistency across our API specification. And last but not least, we have leveraged the Postman private API network as our internal API catalog that offers a complete visibility into available APIs, therefore enhancing discovery and reuse across Moneris. So as you can see on my screen over here, this is that beautiful screen of the API Builder. See the spec, you have some documentation there, and same time you have also the governance rules. We'll speak how they are sourced from. But you see all of it in one nice screen. While this is a quick sneak peek into our private API network. So APIs are versioned there, and each version you can easily and intuitively scroll through and discover what endpoints are available. Now, as you can see, Postman definitely allowed us to scale our API governance while maintaining quality, consistency, and reusability. So, now let's speak about how we created modern reusable APIs. So, to begin with, we have adopted REST as our primary API design style. And it's not just following trends. I mean, REST's uniform characteristics gives us the predictability and consistency that both our API developers and consumers can depend on. And we complemented it with a comprehensive open API documentation. And this is not just documentation for the sake of documentation. It's about creating a living contract where all our API consumers can understand how our APIs do function. And on a strategical design, we have mapped our business domains to our API architecture. And this alignment ensures that our APIs showcase business value and not just technical constructs. While on the tactical design, we have implemented design patterns that preserve our domain models' integrity throughout our code base, therefore enhancing our API's maintainability. We'll speak about one of those patterns in the next slide. And throughout this process, we relied, of course, on API governance as our guardian angel by ensuring we have automated API specification reviews, therefore catching issues early and avoiding development bottlenecks. And to that purpose, we ensure that our governance process is both adaptive and context-specific by applying the Postman governance on the workspace level at Postman. Therefore, helping teams like having, their own, each team will have like their own exceptions from the process. Because yes, you're gonna start with a standardized API design style and governance rules, but then as you go on, teams will be coming and saying, oh, we have an issue here. What we wanna say, we'll say, okay, let's hear you out. But we want definitely everybody to apply same governance rules. So as you can see on my screen over here, this is the Postman governance, I would say, portal, where, as you can see, you have the governance rules, and this is where you can configure which rules goes to which workspace. In our case, now we did all workspaces together, but as you can see, you can select which workspace, and these rules, some of them, I would say, yeah, half of them, I would say, are actually built in by Postman, so thank you, Postman, for that. Makes my life easier. While the other half, we ported our API design style into Postman. So just FYI, so Postman governance relies on spectral linting engine to perform API linting. So far things are going so well, do they? Now that said, as our API portfolio started to grow, we started facing certain complexities. Development teams started creating duplicate components. Also, we noticed implementation consistencies across services, as well as an increased code maintenance overhead. And the result is we kept losing valuable efforts for consistency and reusability. So what's the solution? One solution we found is implementing a common definitions library, or rather than technically a shared repository of reusable and standardized parameters and components, such as error responses and authentication schemes. Actually, the power of OpenAPI isn't just in documentation, but in creating the foundation for reuse. When powerful reusable models, such as pagination, common error responses, as well as authentication schemes, are coded once and reused everywhere, we are creating a cohesive API ecosystem that is far greater than the sum of its parts. And by investing in such shared repository, we are creating a more maintainable and scalable API architecture process across our organization. Now, let's move from design and speak a bit about implementation. And our operational foundation begins with GitOps-driven reviews. So for each API, we have created a Git repository that includes the API specification, the pipeline configuration to deploy that API, as well as the Postman API test collection. And this ensures that you have one single source of truth for our entire API ecosystem. And building on our GitOps foundations, we have created a robust CI/CD pipeline by combining some of our tools with Postman CLI tools. And these automations include efficient API linting process to ensure quality and consistency across our API specifications, a complete API breakage detection process to prevent regression, as well as automated API documentation, generation, and publishing. So in this case, we also integrated it with the Postman Private API Network API. And last but not least, we have also created a multi-sided testing approach covering contracts, integrations, performance, and security. And we ensured the sanity of our services by relying on Postman's continuous monitoring features. So, using synthetic tests or health check tests, call them, by their right name. So, synthetic health check tests, we ensure the service of our, we ensure the health of our services. But not only that, we have also combined Postman collections with Postman Monitor to ensure that our key business processes are always valid and were not broken by a recent change in any of the underlying services we have. Yes, when you have 2, 3 microservices, it's easy, but good luck when you have 20 or 30 microservices in production. And thanks to the integration between Postman monitors and our alerting system, whenever an issue arises, responsible teams are alerted immediately, therefore ensuring a rapid response. And as you can see on my screen, this is how simple to run a governance test in Postman. Just Postman, lint, and your spec, or the API ID. And Postman will handle the rest. As you can see, you get yourself a long list of the issues that your API has, starts from and categorized from info all the way to error. And here a quick sneak preview into our contract tests. And this is where we relied on Postman's integration with a GV library. So what we do here, we translate our API specification that is in YAML to a JSON schema. And then we just ask Postman, please validate. It's as simple as that. And last but not least, this is a preview of our production monitor, where not only we are running health check tests, but also we are calling certain, as you can see, REST endpoints there to make sure that our authentication processes, for example, are not broken. And now I'm equally excited to show you how, by implementing all these best practices and processes, we have turned Moneris from a code first to an API first organization. And now we are talking about the Moneris API product. So, how we get started there? So, throughout our assessment phase, we have prioritized the Moneris Gateway API that serves as the backbone of processing at Moneris. So it doesn't get any high value, high impact than this, doesn't it? So we built our new APIs with powerful, reusable components at their core and leveraged powerful models such as money to define what's a monetary value, as well as address to define a common address across all our APIs. And not only that, we have also leveraged common REST resources such as payment methods to define payment mediums, as well as payments to define monetary transactions. And now those reusable REST resources can reflect in other APIs such as restaurant-based APIs, etc. And as you can see now, our APIs are speaking the language of commerce by aligning our API taxonomy with common structures and terms coming from the payment industry. And the gateway to our success is the Moneris API Developer Portal. We designed a developer experience that puts customers in full control through a full self-service, from sign up, to testing, to documentation, to even managing your integrations. And we also streamlined our onboarding process, getting customers from sign up to their first API call in matters of minutes through intuitive guides and tutorials. We'll show you some of those in the next slide. And last but not least, we have ensured that our API developer portal is fully bilingual and ensure that all resources there are available in English and French, therefore ensuring that our APIs are accessible throughout entire Canada. And as you can see in my screen, this is the homepage of our developer portal. Not super fancy, see? Something quickly, simple, easy to navigate. Our API specification, see? It's easy, public, no need to sign up to do anything, just go there. Now, you like our APIs, you sign up, you go there, account, credentials, and there you can start managing your integrations. Integrations can be either API key or OAuth. And I'm also super excited to show you our Postman public workspace that's designed to transform how developers interact with our APIs. Here where we leveraged Postman's easy authentication and we created a seamless authentication flow that eliminates additional barriers to API access. So you no longer need to create, to pretty much fill a big screen with your client ID, secret, et cetera, right? To do OAuth with Postman easy authentication, just to put client ID, secret, you make the API call, and Postman will handle the rest. It will fetch a token, store it in the Postman vault, and do the API call. That's how you get to a faster time to first call. And on the same line, we have also made navigation between our API developer portal and the Postman public workspace effortless by creating seamless transitions that maintain context throughout the development journey. I'll show you how we did that, and it's very easy. Also, we leveraged the Postman public collections and flows, and we created comprehensive use cases and scenarios stemming from real-world applications of our APIs, therefore helping our customers implement solutions faster. And the result of all these initiatives is that we were able to reduce the time to first call by up to 10 times in production. What used to take sometimes months to integrate now takes days. And as you can see, running Postman button, simple as that, from our spec, takes you to the public workspace. Now you are in the Moneris workspace. You can look at the collections, and once you select the collection, there you go. Now you can start, we have also the documentation there, and you can intuitively browse the endpoints and start testing. Simple, eh? And there you go, the Postman flows. And this intuitive visual representation of our API workflows definitely explains to our customers and integrators how to be able to integrate multiple, let's say, calls of our APIs. We all know it's not one API call. It's always like 2, 3, maybe even 5 API calls. And on the community side, we have transformed how we approach the community, where we have created a comprehensive approach that maintains continuous feedback loop with our customers through the Postman community initiatives that we have built. From the one side, we have created tutorials on the Postman community side to complement those Postman flows, and that way we helped our customers easily navigate through our API use cases. And on the other side, we have also partnered with the Postman Spec Hub team to showcase to the community how to approach governance without slowing down your development team's productivity. And the results couldn't speak more for themselves. on the Postman public workspace, we noticed a significant increase in the number of watchers and forks. And as you know, a Postman fork, that is probably a sales lead. While we also we noticed that the Moneris API sandbox registrations actually doubled quarter over quarter since implementing these initiatives. And as you can see, a community-first based approach have transformed how our customers discover, understand, and adopt our APIs. And last but not least, AI. I mean, look, right now you cannot talk about APIs these days if you do not talk about AI. So let's talk a bit about the critical intersection of AI and APIs and how they are transforming the digital landscape. So what really happened with AI? Actually, organizations that build strong API foundations are discovering that they actually built the perfect launch pad for AI innovation. The structured data and clear interfaces that APIs provide are exactly what AI needs to perform efficiently. And at Moneris, we are also discovering that our APIs are no longer just integration points, now are they? Now in the world of AI, they are effective AI tools. And what we are learning also more is that the quality of the API specifications that we provide affect directly the quality of AI experiences we can deliver. I mean, well-designed, consistent, and developer-friendly APIs are exactly what AI needs to access and manipulate data and therefore drive business value. Now, on the other side, we are also learning how AI is helping us improve our API development process. I mean, let's look at it. AI automated API documentation generation is definitely making sure our APIs are more accessible than ever. And in the same line, also, AI is now becoming so powerful that it's capable of identifying patterns for transformation and reusability across our API specifications. And one last point on AI is that we are noticing a fundamental shift in how developers integrate with the APIs. Traditional SDKs are now giving way gradually to AI agents that can understand and communicate with our APIs directly, therefore eliminating those traditional barriers that our merchants had in the past with integration. What used to take months or, weeks, now can take hours or even minutes. So, and let me show you here, as you can see, you have Postbot, for example, request, response, and then I just ask Postbot, document this for me. There you go, I have an API documentation, easy as high. Moreover, I have an API spec that is in our public GitHub repository. I have GitHub Copilot there. All I can do, hey, Copilot, can you explain me what this YAML means? And there you go. You have very good API documentation. And last but not least, this is how we can use the Postman AI toolgen. Yeah, I know. I'm talking AI toolgen when there is MCP. I know, hey, I built this honestly. A month ago, what happened a month ago to now? MCP happened. So in this case, what we can do, and even through the Postman MCP generator, it's the same conditions apply, where through the public workspace we have, now you can generate equivalent AI tools that now we can feed to this is an example of an AI agent we built using LangChain, and what it can do, actually it can perform actual payments through just prompts. And as you can see, this is where I was a bit, verbose in the logs, you see it shows like, you see it's asking for card numbers, and now it's making the calls to our payment method API to create the payment method. And when it's good, now it goes and actually creates a payment and says, yay, all is good. Simple. And that's the power of AI. Well, we'll see when AI and money will combine. That's gonna be, we need to give it some time there, because we know that we were just talking like in other sessions, AI still, hallucinates a bit, so careful about your wallet. All right, so let's summarize why API transformation and reusability matter. First, it makes integration with newer systems faster. It reduces maintenance cost, obviously. It improves developer experience. It accelerates innovation and unlocks new business opportunities. And the key success factors to such huge undertaking are, first of all, start by having a clear API strategy. Have a clear and powerful governance process. Also, adopt an API-first design methodology and build a comprehensive, developer-friendly API ecosystem. It's not just the developer portal, not just the API specs, not the community or the public workspace, it's all of it together. That's what creates a developer-friendly API ecosystem. And last but not least, make sure to focus on business capabilities and not just technology. So, and to conclude with, transforming APIs is no longer just a technical exercise here. It's actually a business imperative. So when you create your APIs to be more reusable, what you are actually doing is creating the baseline for a digital agility where your APIs will be able to adapt to whatever technology brings tomorrow. And as you can see, today it brought us AI, and it's definitely testing that reusability and those good design of ours. Who knows what's going to bring us tomorrow? Thank you.